and Home Affairs Minister K. Shanmugam says that the turmoil in Afghanistan presents a mid to long-term strategic security issue for the country. Although there is no immediate increase in threats on a day-to-day basis, he made the comments on the eve of the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks.
Previously, what happened with ISIS and Al-Qaeda was that Afghanistan provided a safe haven for training persons from Southeast Asia, including from Singapore. Will that happen again? A lot of people fear that. I fear that, that might happen again. So yes, I think the prospect of increased terrorism in the region, I think many security agencies and serious people are concerned about it.
He says that under the Internal Security Act, Singapore's ability to pick up people at a very early stage has been important in preventing attacks so far. Mr. Shanmugam mentioned the recent New Zealand supermarket terror attack, where the perpetrator was known to the authorities. The attacker had purchased knives and researched on bomb making. He'd been under surveillance since 2016 and was released from custody 2 months earlier. Mr. Shanmugam says that in Singapore, the attacker would have been detained under the ISA.
Every country has to find its own way, as I said, to deal with this challenge. For us, the key is to make sure the social and economic policies help keep the good opportunities for all and make sure that people feel that they have a stake in the country. And that helps to keep extremism and radicalism to a very limited number. And then the ISA comes in, helps us deal effectively with these limited number of cases. So security threats have been kept low, prevented attacks so far, and importantly, has also allowed us to rehabilitate most of the radicalized individuals.
Singapore's Internal Security Department says the Taliban takeover could serve as a form of inspiration for terrorist groups and radicalized individuals, including those in Southeast Asia. But it adds that while there's no information of a specific terrorist threat to the country, developments in Afghanistan are being watched closely. Tan Se-hui reports.
This was the moment the world will never forget. 20 years on, terrorism remains a threat to nations all over the world, including Singapore. And for those radicalized, work at the Religious Rehabilitation Group continues to provide counseling to them as well as their families. Since its formation in 2003, they've conducted more than 1,500 sessions.
Now, it's been 20 years since 9/11. What has transpired since then?
We do not deny the fact that violent Islamism has been the key threat. But over the years, what we are worried today is not only terrorism and violence. For example, orientations such as extremism, exclusivism, even racism, xenophobia, anti-religious sentiments, and other orientations, that I think these are the key threats that we need to deal with today.
Tell us about your work at the Religious Rehabilitation Group over the last 20 years. What's the process like? Take us through it.
This is where we assist those who have been led astray by providing them the correct understanding of the religious concepts that they have misunderstood. And the other pillar, which is equally important in the work of the RRG, is the community engagement pillar.
Will the rehabilitation methods also change, especially since the landscape of terrorism has also evolved over the years?
RRG has realized that the extremist ideas and radical thoughts have been widely spread via social media platforms. Since 2015, we have initiated several online platforms, which include our website, our Facebook account, Instagram account, because this is the way forward for us to deal with the threat of online radicalization.
The Religious Rehabilitation Group says it has successfully rehabilitated 90% of its detainees. But how do we prevent more from getting radicalized in the first place? And should we be concerned in Singapore about the resurgence of the Taliban?
The ISD says radicalized individuals may be inspired to conduct attacks or make their way to Afghanistan. They could pose a serious threat upon their return with newly acquired paramilitary skills and terrorist connections.
It depends how each individual shows an interest and how the Taliban seeks to actually propagate itself in the region through its affiliates. So maybe groups like the Jama'ah Ansarul Sharia might have information in Bahasa Indonesia or even Bahasa Melayu and some translation being done in English.
Social media poses an even more complex problem.
The biggest challenge is encrypted messaging apps. So for example, you have Telegram, Signal. How is monitoring going to be done of cyberspace? You do not know who is meeting who, what is being shared, and what are the plans if you are looking at a terror attack in the future in the region.
While a terrorist attack has yet to happen in Singapore, both Mr. Singh and Dr. Mohammed say the country needs to stay vigilant to prevent further acts of radicalization.